What's going on, builders? Welcome back to yet another episode. So I'm pretty excited about this one. We're actually working with a cage that I've never worked with before. So this is actually a 4-foot tall by 24 wide by 24 deep Carolina custom cage. You can order these cages on Amazon and you actually have to put them together yourself, which I should have filmed it and I didn't, and I'm sorry for that, guys. But it comes with the base, which is solid, and the part that holds water, and then the top that you have to put together yourself. The instructions are fairly easy to follow as well, especially once you do one, you kind of know how the rest of them go together. So this cage that we're actually going to be building today is for a veiled chameleon. So I'm pretty pumped about it because I've never done this before, and this is for a customer. So we're going to jump into this. Hopefully you guys enjoy it.
So one of the first things I'm doing here is actually running a bead of silicone down all the seams of the glass on the top. And the reason for this is so I don't have glass moving around too much when I'm moving the cage. Moving on to the Hardscape, this did take me quite a little while. I do have it sped up here to kind of figure out how I wanted this to go. I'm using 3 very large pieces of spiderwood. I really like the branch pattern on these 3 pieces, but it did take me a little bit to figure out how I really wanted to place them. So I did move them around a little bit. And this is basically what I came up with. I really like the way it kind of spread across the back of the entire cage. But now to secure them to the glass, I'm using, as always, the Gorilla Glue construction adhesive. I absolutely love this stuff. I mean, it is literally like concrete. I've never had an issue with this stuff coming off once it's dry. In a cage this tall, of course you want to put net pots along the back or sides if you really want to. I decided to go with, I believe it was 5 in this tall cage, just to get different plants higher up in the cage, because you could put tall plants in the bottom, yes, but to have the different plants in there really brings these cages together. On top of that, adding a lot of cork bark as well, which can give the chameleon more things to grab and hold on to, and also more plants as well. Now when it comes to foaming this cage, yes, I am using the classic Great Stuff expanding foam, just for the simple fact that at the time of building this cage, I could not find the Black Stuff Pond and Stone, or Great Stuff, I should say, Pond and Stone anywhere. It wasn't available for quite some time. It is finally available again, but there's nothing wrong with using the classic Great Stuff to foam this stuff in. I just like the Black Stuff because it hides mist spots better. But going around and foaming this, and honestly, after I started foaming it, I realized this is going to be a very hard cage to carve out once all this foam is cured. I also decided to add a couple of vines as well. So these are the Universal Rock vines. I believe this is the 1-inch vine, but just taking some construction grease adhesive again and securing it to the glass. I'm actually going to be using this wood clamp here to push it up to the glass until that adhesive dries. But again, no bond is going to break that vine off the glass. I love the way these things look. You can make them yourself, but I just had this one sitting around, so I figured I'll use it. Now this next part I always say is very important. I'm actually hosing off the walls of the enclosure, not with a sprayer, but with an actual hose, for two reasons. One, to see any spots that I by chance might have missed that got covered up with bedding, so that if the walls do get wet, they don't get seen later. And two, chameleons and a lot of animals that go in these cages are high impact animals, meaning if they digest or get some of this on a food, it could seriously hurt them or possibly kill them. So you want to make sure you get all the loose substrate off the walls. Now here you can see some of the spots I by chance missed. So all you're going to do is simply take a little dab of silicone on your finger, put it over the spot you missed, and put some more bedding or substrate on those spots.
All right, guys, now after working on this cage for a little over a week now, I think it's safe to say I do not like these cages. Carolina custom cages, they're on Amazon. You know, on a point system, I'd give it a 3 out of 10 for making bioactive or vivariums or possibly even paludariums. Now, the reason for that is they are very flimsy after you put them together. So much for the fact that I've been seriously worried about this cage cracking or breaking while moving this cage around to now work on it. And after I got done with everything, I was like, all right, cool, it's perfect. You know, I didn't crack it. And again, out of the 3 years I've been doing this professionally now, I haven't had a cage break on me until now. So this here is the back of the cage. And as you can see, it cracked. So it's very difficult to see, I'm sorry, but there is a lot of cracks. There you go, now you can see it, all running across the back of this thing. Now, funny enough is it happened literally by itself when I was not moving the cage. So after the last clip you guys saw before this one, I, touched up the spots I needed to, hosed it down again, and I was letting it dry, and I was working on another build that I'm doing for my personal stuff. And I was out here the next morning, and all of a sudden I heard this really weird noise. Now, it was a noise I've heard before, I just couldn't put my finger on it, and I had this cage standing up right here with the back as close to the bench as I could, so I had more room to work. And I was looking for the noise, I couldn't find it, couldn't figure out what it was. So I went out, throughout my day working on the other cage. And then when it came time the next day to start planting this bad boy, I pulled it away from my workbench and realized that the back of this thing was completely cracked. So I've been going over my head a couple times what I can do to fix it. Obviously, I cannot take out that piece of glass and then go ahead and put a new piece in because of all the stuff that is attached to the glass. I'd have to basically redo the whole cage. So what I came up with is basically getting a piece of plexiglass. I'm going to cut it to fit this perfectly, and then use construction adhesive to cover the entire piece and then attach the plexiglass to give it more strength and also to keep it from having glass fall out when we do transport this to this customer's house. So we're going to start that now.
Now, starting with the base, I'm actually going to be using foam for this one, like I do with most of my customers' jobs, because it makes transporting them a lot easier, because it does make the cage lighter. Now, for this particular build, because it is 2 feet by 2 feet, I did have to use a lot more foam than I'm used to, and because I'm putting a lot of bigger plants or a bigger plant in the background, I wanted to leave the back deeper versus the front. So I put an extra piece of foam here in the front just to make that back a little deeper. After putting the drainage layer down, I'm going to go ahead and start filling this bad boy with dirt. Again, if you'd like to see how I make my Vivarium substrate, you can click the little time card up in the top corner. But for this cage, I am going to be putting a lot of dirt because we are putting one very large plant in here. As always, we're going to start with the biggest plant. This is known as an umbrella plant or a green, I don't even know if I'm saying this right, but arbiocola, I believe is how it's pronounced. But because it's coming from a nursery, I want to get as much as the substrate out as possible off the roots. So as you can see, I'm rinsing them off here in this tub. Also going to let it soak in the water. I rinse off for a little bit to help break it up, and rinsing off the plant as much as possible as well. Now, because this plant is so big, I definitely want to trim it up quite a bit for two reasons. One, so it'll actually fit in the enclosure, and two, to kind of trigger it to have some new growth on it. So I am trimming up the roots and also a lot of the plant. I'm gonna have to do this now and then also when I put it in the cage as well to kind of make sure it fits where I want to put it. So some of the other plants I'm adding are just a couple different ferns and vining plants. Like this, for example, this is a wart fern planting in front of the trumpet. And then like this creeping fig here, I believe I put 2 of these on the back wall to kind of grow up the back wall with a couple other vining plants and ferns as well, like bird's nest ferns and things. So time to start adding our first live inhabitants, putting some cork bark on the ground here for them to hide in. So these are the springtails. If you look really close, you can see all the little white dots moving. Those are all springtails. So they actually float on water if you don't know, so that's why it's easy to pour them in with water. Next, sprinkling in some more substrate on top, but there's stuff in it, I promise you. So actually just using tropical white dwarf or tropical dwarf isopods in here. There's one right there moving across the middle of the screen. They're so cute and little. So I went with these little guys over a bigger isopod so that the chameleons hopefully won't eat them. You know, they're great cleanup crew and they breed fantastically. So now that those guys are in, I'm going to give them a bit of like a hydration station. So just adding a couple different spots of sphagnum moss around. This will stay nice and wet constantly, and the isopods can go and drink and take shelter in it if they need to. So this customer did want me to add a misting system, so I went with the ReptiZoo. I believe it's a 1 gallon sprayer. He did not want to deal with spraying down the chameleons, you know, every day or every other day. So I am incorporating this into the build. Personally, these don't work for me just because I have so many different vivariums and terrariums and things. But for somebody that has, you know, 1 or 2 tanks, these things are great. You don't need to take the top off to add water. There is, you know, built-in timers and everything like that. They come with literally everything you need, you know, for 1 or 2 terrariums if that's what you choose. They're wonderful. So I'm gonna get this all set up for him, make sure everything is working great, and then we're moving on to lights. Of course, I had to add some tint to the sides of the cage as well, just to make it look super clean. Now, as per the customer's request, he wanted everything to kind of be black, just to kind of match. So, for the lighting on this, I'm going with one Fluker's dome for the heat bulb, and then 2 of the Paludarium hoods for the grow lights. By Zoomed, of course. For the heat light, just doing your standard 50-watt basking light, daylight. This guy's going to have everything on timer, so don't need to worry about it being too hot or anything like that. Now, these grow lights I've never actually used before. Found them on Amazon. They're from a brand that I know and have used in the past, so I wanted to try them out and see how they basically did. That's why I went with 2 of them as well, so I can have them mounted on each side of the cage to get maximum light. These are T5 lights, so they should have no problem. That's it for this video, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Remember to subscribe if you are not already. Please share my videos, help my channel grow. It will be greatly appreciated. And comment down below. Let me know what you think of this awesome chameleon enclosure. See you guys next time.